Well, the first experience, the first fight I did 50 years ago, was the worst experience.
Why?
Nothing could be worse, because the fight started out to be in Chicago between Muhammad Ali and Ernie Terrell, who was the #1 contender. What happened was Ali was training in Florida, and that's when they reclassified him in the draft. We had then from 1Y to 1A. 1Y was not, he was not eligible to serve, because at that point in time he was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. He subsequently learned, but at that point he was illiterate. So when they reclassified him 1Y to 1A, he was interviewed before we could talk to him by a news reporter, and that's when he said, I'm not going to fight the Viet Cong because they never called me in. And everybody exploded, because in that point in time of our history, everybody, or virtually everybody in the United States, was in favor of the war in Vietnam. So as a result of that, we were kicked out of Chicago, and we went to Montreal, and the mayor in Canada, and the mayor threw us out. And finally, we ended up in Toronto. And,
oh my God!
And Terrell decided he wouldn't go through with the fight because he was afraid there was no money, because fighters fought on percentages in those days. So Chavalos stepped in, and I finally had my first fight March 29th, 1966. Now, in Toronto, Canada. Now, people tell me, how you're in boxing, you must have had terrible experiences. Believe me, Anna, that was the worst. It was my first. So everything was easy after that. Because you imagine, I'm running around the country, everybody says you can't fight here, you can't fight there. In Montreal, the mayor throws us out because the American Legion was going to boycott the World's Fair in Montreal. We end up in Toronto, and there was a very courageous man named Harold Ballard who said, you come here, we'll do the fight. But he only owned half of the building and half of the Toronto Maple Leafs, a great hockey team. And so Connie Smythe owned the other 50%, the famous Connie Smythe. And so Harold Ballard had to buy out Connie Smythe, because Smythe said he didn't want Ali in his building. They were terrible, terrible times. But anyway, we got over that. And then I took Ali to England for a couple of fights, and then to Germany, and then we went back to Houston, Texas for 2 fights, did one more in Madison Square Garden, and then they took away his license, and for 3.5 years he couldn't fight.
Wow. It was difficult for you, right?
Well, it was difficult for him, more than for me. But he was very courageous, and it worked out so that he became a tremendous figure on the world stage, because sometimes when you make big sacrifices like he did with his career to stand up for what he believed was right, people appreciate that, and I think that enhanced his popularity and his world acclaim. First met Muhammad Ali and became his lawyer and promoter. He belonged to the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam at that point was a very radical group and believed in the separation of whites and blacks.
Yeah.
But
Religion.
gradually, after the death of Elijah Muhammad, who was the head of the Nation of Islam, his son, Wallace Muhammad, was very okay as far as mixing the races. They believed in the Muslim religion, but it was non-racial. And Ali became part of that group. And the one thing you could never say about Ali, after that initial period when he was a member of the Nation of Islam, Ali was completely open to people of all races, believe me.
Oh, okay. Do you remember the fight Muhammad Ali and Liston won?
I didn't. I don't. I was.
Was you there?
I was in the Justice Department then. I was the guy. I was still with the government. I remember that fight from seeing pictures of the fight, the tape of the fight, and reading about it. But I wasn't at that fight. My involvement in boxing started in 1965, and first fight in '66, and that fight was in 1964.
What happened?
What?
Why the fight was stopped?
No, what the fight was stopped because Liston thought that he could beat Ali easily by knocking him out. But when he realized that he couldn't, that Ali was too fast for him, and even though he was moving, he could hit him and hurt him, Liston quit. He said he hurt his shoulder and so forth. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but he quit. He quit because he couldn't beat Ali, and his whole persona that Liston had was a bully. So if he couldn't bully his opponent, he would quit. Now you saw that more recently.
He was quick and set his arms.
Yeah, more recently you saw that when Mike Tyson, who would bully his opponents and make them afraid, fought Evander Holyfield, who wasn't afraid. No, the first fight, Tyson quit. Yeah. And the second fight, he bit his ear, which was a way to quit.
Yeah.
So, bullies, if you stand up to them, of course you have to have the skill and so forth, they'll back down. And that's what happened. Liston backed down. And in the second fight, when Ali hit him with that quick punch, and Liston got knocked down, he could have gotten up, but he wasn't getting up.
Okay. How is Muhammad right now?
Very bad. Yeah, he has an advanced case of Parkinson's. It's a disease that runs in his family. I mean, his father had Parkinson's. His brother has Parkinson's. But I think probably the blows that he took throughout his career didn't help the situation. But to say that it was boxing and the blows to that caused it, no, that doesn't cause Parkinson's. It may make it worse. And I think in Ali's case, that's what happened.